9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Do you have constitutional questions? Get constitutional answers. We'll be answering your constitutional questions live, so get ready to call in now. Are you a prosecutor, law enforcement officer, or local government employee? Want to make sure you are executing the laws in a constitutional manner? Are you a city council member, township board member, or state legislator? Want to ensure the laws you pass are constitutional? Perhaps you're a citizen who wants to know the proper limits on government and the protections for your God-given liberties. Regardless of your role, call me, Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, with your constitutional questions during our live call-in show now at the phone number listed on the screen. And remember, together we can restore freedom.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, everyone. Let's see here, get the right buttons at the right time in the right place. Seems like I'm a bit off. Let's see. Nope, it's going to make me too tall, too short. Anyway, hello, everyone. I'm Constitutional Attorney Catherine Henry, and here to answer your constitutional questions. This is our live call-in show. Normally, we've been doing this the last several months. We've been doing this the second Tuesday of the month at noon and the fourth Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. I've had some different family stuff I have to attend to, some travel that I have coming up very soon. And because of all the things going on in my life, last week didn't quite work and next week won't work. And the 25th, I was scheduled to be in court as well, although that just recently got moved. But anyway, bear with us as these few weeks, we're just shaking things up a little different. So today, it's not the second Tuesday of the month, but we're still coming to you live at noon right now. And we will be live in 2 weeks at 7 p.m. So the third Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. July, we're set to be on track for our normal time. So hello, everyone. It looks like we're all getting checked in. Let's see. Jane, hello. For the record, Liberty Warrior, Disabled Outcast, Jen Mitchell, everybody, John, everybody else who's in there, hello. Nice to see you guys. So I've had several people commenting that, oh, hold on a second. I have a comment from Spicy Chemist. We are working to take back Georgetown Township. We lost the votes after you left. Okay, that's a much more in-depth thing that I want to address. I'm going to go to the next comment real quick. This is a public service, says, hair looks great, Catherine, thank you. He has a vested interest in saying that because he's the one that gave me the recommendation to go to his hairstylist. So thank you for that recommendation. And we talked all about you during the entire haircut. So anyway, and don't forget, you haven't answered my text. We got to get that trial binder transferred back. So anyway, lots of fun freedom fighting cases and things going on. When I say fun, I don't really mean fun, but it is what it is. We do what we got to do because somebody's got to do it, right? So anyway, I do want to touch back on the Georgetown Township. For those of you who don't know, I was a Georgetown Township trustee and the only person in United States history to be arrested and then elected on the same day. And so I was elected to Georgetown Township as a trustee of a township of a little over 50,000 people. at the time. I don't know what it stands at right now. We just had a new census, but anyway, it was an honor to be able to serve the people of Georgetown Township and to be able to whip into shape the trustees who were on the board who didn't care what the law was, didn't care what the Constitution was. Quite frankly, they didn't care what we the people wanted either. And the meetings went from, I don't know, I heard that they used to be like 20 minutes long before I went on the board to about 4 hours each. That was fun times. And well, it's because I read all the documents that were put in front of us that we were supposed to vote on. And I did my research and I read the appropriate laws. And I made sure that my votes were informed and that I was in turn informing the rest of the public, the rest of the board on what legal implications there were for each of these votes and what the people were asking. And so anyway, I might not have always personally agreed with the vote that I took, but if it was legally the right thing to do, then it was the right thing to do. So anyway, by legally, I mean, of course, it's not legal unless it's constitutional first. That's the first criterion in order to make something legal. But anyway, a woman too tall or too short, it's impossible. Well, I am too short for the WNBA, I can tell you that. But I meant in terms of my desk going up and down because it's an adjustable height desk and I can't adjust too much on the screen with the software I use. So I have to be just the right spot so my head's not cut off or whatnot. So anyway, Jen Mitchell says Rogue Nation sent you. Thank you for coming over. Thanks to Rogue Nation. I wish the Spicy Chemist the best of luck. And man, I wish there was something I could do because, yeah, it's terrible that we lost the votes of common sense and constitutionality in Georgetown Township. I will actually be visiting this weekend. We're heading up there. One of the reasons why I won't be able to do the show next week, I will be in Michigan visiting my grandmother who's needing a visit, and also had an aunt recently pass away, and I couldn't get up there in time to do the funeral and all the family festivities, but if you could be in prayer for my family about that. She was definitely someone who's special to our family. Anyway, just trying to get through this. 18,000 households, I think, is what Spicy Chemist is saying. That is for the amount of households maybe in Georgetown Township. I never thought about it that way, but that would make sense if it's around 50,000 people. And Jane has a question, and Jane is a good buddy of mine. We go back to the beginning of COVID fighting, freedom fighting in 2020. Or maybe I met you before, Jane. Gosh, I don't know now. Anyway, in criminal law, generally the fruit of the poisonous tree is inadmissible and null. Does the work product of an illegal township board meeting become null and not enforceable? Unfortunately, not exactly. So it depends. Now, I'm going to answer this in terms of Michigan law because that's what's more at the forefront of my mind. I have not read a lot of the other laws in other states on this topic, and but I have certainly read the Open Meetings Act and some other laws regarding township board meetings, especially since I was a township board member. So I can tell you, for example, that if there was an illegal board meeting because it violated the Open Meetings Act, you only have a limited amount of days to bring a lawsuit to do anything about that. So, for example, if that's the primary thing that was illegal, is that they violated Open Meetings Act. The last I checked, could have changed, the law was, I believe, 30 or 60 days, very short time frame in which that you can file a claim, a case in circuit court to dispute that meeting, to dispute the outcome of that meeting, etc. And then a court would basically handle it from there. If you don't bring a lawsuit in that amount of time, then the open meetings violation doesn't really, it's like, oh well, the law basically deems it as no harm, no foul. And so it's not an appropriate response in the law, but I suppose it serves so that there's some sort of stability and that you can't challenge something 10 years later. Meanwhile, Township board business has continued to go on, and people have continued to rely on the actions that the board has taken in that meantime. I suppose there is some sort of reason to that, but such a short time period is really, it's unfortunate. But anyway, okay, so if you visit Bosch, would like to meet you in person. Okay. Yes, I figured you were saying you would like to meet me in person. I guess I didn't plan on it necessarily. I only have a few days, and every day I'm there, I'll definitely have to be meeting up with my grandma. That's the main purpose of the trip. But yeah, I could see myself taking a visit over and hanging out with Bosch and maybe my good friends Rachel Atwood and Joe Moss and others in the, well, Joe isn't in Georgetown Township, but he's right over the border. So anyway, and let's see here. Okay, so I answered all those questions, or addressed everything, at least, that was in the chat so far. If you do have questions, and I did see that there were, in fact, maybe it was you, Jen Mitchell. I'm trying to think. Somebody was commenting on the YouTube post I made earlier that they were interested because they had a lot of different questions, and now's the time. So if you're just listening and you maybe set the phone down, because I don't have a lot of exciting stuff going on the screen these days. I don't do the PowerPoint presentations and things that I used to. What I do have on the phone is the call-in number. So that's 616-303 0093. I almost said the wrong number, but that's 616-303-0093. Call in that number right now if you have constitutional questions, because, well, that's the whole purpose of this show. In the meantime, it looks like Donald says, my nephew was caught up and trapped by the feds in that trumped up kidnapping case of our governor. He has been out in a federal prison out of state, but was not charged with a federal crime. That's insane. Donald, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you telling me that he hasn't even been tried? There's been no trial yet to find whether he was guilty or not of that lovely kidnapping plot. And by the way, in case anybody is wondering, I don't know all of the people alleged, charged with the alleged kidnapping plot, but I do know of two. And, I'm not BFFs with them, right? I don't know everything about them, but I do know of them and their families and their business. And, we've had some quite long talks, and they certainly provided much needed protection for me and others that were speaking all across the state of Michigan in 2020 and 2021 at various freedom rallies. Because the cops wouldn't do their jobs then, we at least had militia to stand by our side. At any rate, the Null brothers are the two that I do know that were charged. And of course, I want to say it was back in October that they were found to be, the jury came back not guilty and acquitted them because they didn't commit any offenses. They didn't, violate the law in any way. They certainly weren't trying to kidnap the governor. She's got a lot of cooties, and they didn't want anything to do with that. So anyway, that woman needs to be in federal prison herself, but kidnapped? No. At any rate, so let's see. You think Rachel is still in Geneva? I was going to check in with her about that. I haven't touched base with her yet about the dates that I'll be in Michigan, but I won't be up there until late Friday night, maybe Saturday morning. Anyway, so Jen has a question. In Tennessee, you have to show ID to get a FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request. Doesn't this go against the 14th Amendment and the 4th? Is there any way around this? I guess flesh out that thought for me. I haven't thought about it in those terms. What do you think it's violating as far as the 14th Amendment? Are you saying it's a due process violation? Are you saying, I guess, flesh that out? I want to make sure that I can think about that and answer that, but just never had the question posed to me like that before. So, and as far as the 4th Amendment, what specifically are you thinking about? So I got my trusty document here, the Constitution, and I'll go ahead and get all that open. The Fourth Amendment is, of course, not that long. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched or the persons or things to be seized. Now, the thing is, as far as unreasonable searches and seizures, being able to show your ID in order to request government records, I'm not sure. I mean, it seems to me maybe you're saying that's an unreasonable search. Flesh that one out for me too, because I'm not sure that I follow you on that. Again, I haven't thought about it in terms of that before, because it's different than if you are just minding your own business and a government official comes to you and is demanding your ID, right? That's a different scenario than if you go into a government office and you are requesting documents or you're requesting something of the government. I could see that it would make sense at that point to ask for your ID, depending on what the service or documents are that you're requesting, what exactly is going on there. They often need to make sure they're giving them to the right person or something of that nature. So flesh it out though, flesh out your question, because we can have some more dialogue on that. Okay, so Donald says he was tried and only his group was convicted. Okay, so I vaguely remember the few people that were convicted in that. And his nephew got the least of the sentences. I don't recall what the specifics were, because that's too long ago now, as to what the charges were in that particular case, because it wasn't just straight up kidnapping. There were specific charges, and I don't know what what your nephew's specific charge was, but I'd be interested to know what he was actually found guilty of. And why he would be in a federal prison is very interesting to me. I don't know why that would be. He shouldn't be in a federal prison when it's not a federal crime. And certainly should be in the jurisdiction in which the crime supposedly occurred, or his home jurisdiction, one of the two. There's no reason to have him elsewhere. Okay. They have been, Donald then says, they've been interfering with any of them, even talking to their court-appointed lawyers. They are trying to keep them from returning to the state. Yeah, that is not acceptable. They should never have been removed from the state because their home state is Michigan. The alleged crime happened in the state of Michigan, and there's no ties to anything outside of Michigan except for the FBI agents that were implanted into the situation to begin with. But that has nothing to do with anything, and that doesn't mean that all of a sudden, just because the FBI was part of the plot to kidnap the governor or created the plot to kidnap the governor, that somehow that gives reason to remove them out of the state and put them in a federal prison. Okay. Why do attorneys advertise as civil rights attorneys when they don't take civil rights cases on? That's what John is asking on YouTube. I don't know the answer to that. I know that, well, I don't really know the civil rights attorneys that you're talking about. But for example, if you have a civil rights attorney who just participates in educating people about civil rights laws, that might be the, what they're doing. Maybe they're not taking cases on, but they're in fact educating people. So for example, I'm a constitutional attorney. Very rare exceptions. Am I getting involved in, directly involved as an attorney in constitutional cases? I simply don't have the staff. I don't have the time. I don't have the funds. And I know that I'm called to educate people about the Constitution. So the cases that I am involved in have me very overwhelmed, quite frankly, and exhausted, and use up all my resources. And I simply don't have the time or the resources to take on additional cases. But I do want to make sure that I'm using time just like this to educate you and others on the Constitution and the laws and the constitutional context, so that you can best advocate for yourself. So I don't know. Basically, I don't have an answer for you about what other attorneys do or why. But most other attorneys do a lot of bad things for really dumb reasons. And that's kind of where you have it. So, okay. So Jen says to be secure in our papers and effects. Well, okay. So So Jen is going back to the FOIA request, Freedom of Information Act request, and she's saying, doesn't it violate the Fourth Amendment to have to turn over your ID to be able to get the Freedom of Information Act request? And her argument there is that it violates our right to be secure in our papers and effects. The thing is, that's not the aspect of that. It's are they our papers and effects? So they don't mean ours as in the public. They mean in a personal nature. Sorry, guys. Usually my phone automatically goes on silent. I'm not sure. It's my husband. Okay, lovely. Apparently he's not watching the show because he's texting me other things. Hey, Laura, you should send Mike a message that we're live, or Foshin, and one of the two of you, or Liberty Warrior, somebody send him a text. Anyway, so as far as being secure in our papers and effects, that means our personal documents, our personal things, our contracts, our memoirs, our notes, or whatever it is, our personal things, like within our own home typically is where you find those. And but it's not talking about the ours as in the public, where we share them with other people, because how can you be secure in those? Secure means to be able to protect and hold them yourself. And that's not really, I mean, we share ownership and access rights with all other people of We the People when it comes to public documents. So again, I'm more than willing to flesh this out. I'm not saying it doesn't violate the Fourth Amendment or the 14th Amendment, but in terms of what you're bringing up, I just want to address that bit by bit and have us think about the constitutional implications here. The other thing too is you're focusing on the thing, but you're not focusing on what the Constitution is forbidding. Focus on that. What is the action that the Constitution is forbidding? Because that's the point of the Bill of Rights. So the Fourth Amendment is forbidding unreasonable searches and seizures, and then warrants not being issued, without probable cause, that kind of thing. So unreasonable searches and seizures is what's forbidden there. It's not a search, I wouldn't think. I mean, if you have an argument about that, I'd be more than happy to entertain that, or have us talk about that. But I don't think you would argue that it's a search to get your ID, and they're not seizing anything either. They're identifying you for purposes of processing a request. Again, it's totally different than if you're minding your own business, you're walking along the street and some cop stops you and demands your ID. I'd be like, hell no. I was once with my husband and my maid of honor and her husband, I don't know, many years ago. Probably it might have been when we were going out for our pre-wedding whatever get together. Anyway, we were heading to Lansing from Midland. We're on M20, and my friend Catherine had a really old beater car at the time, and it was special, right? But it was a car, and they were driving, and Mike and I were in the back, and she gets pulled over, and she was totally stereotyped, right? The cop pulled up thinking there's nothing. He didn't have any reason to pull her over. She didn't have a taillight out. She didn't have, she wasn't speeding, she wasn't doing anything wrong, but the look of the car, I think he thought he was going to get a bunch of hoodlums that had just committed a bunch of crimes. And this is going to be his, aha moment. Although dummy, you still have to have probable cause to pull somebody over, even if they're holding a knife and have just killed somebody in their car. You didn't have the right to pull them over. That evidence is going to be excluded. But anyway, so he demands everybody's ID. And of course, I'm the attorney in the back seat going, hell no, you're not getting our IDs. You're certainly not getting my husband's and my ID. No, you don't need to know who we are. We're passengers. We're U.S. citizens, and we have rights, and we didn't commit any offenses, and you don't have probable cause for an arrest or a warrant. So go away and let us go about our evening. And of course, my friend was horrified because she's like, and I'm like, No, but that's a different story. I wasn't trying to utilize any kind of public service or, we were literally driving down the road and they stopped us and thought they would, flex a bit. So, oh, good. Atwood's going to be back on Wednesday. So by the time I'm there late Friday or Saturday, I should be able to catch up. Let's see. Okay. So, oh, shoot. I just scrolled way too much. Public records are not your papers and effects. That's what Disabled Outcast says. Okay, so that is my husband continuing to text me during the show. How dare he? Okay, so in Florida, for instance, you have a constitutional and statutory right to access public records anonymously. Okay, and that is a different scenario because there are different protections in the state of Florida than there are in other states, different procedures in place. Jen says, if I stir the pot too much, they'll know where I live. Well, true. But that's with any freedom fighting. And so, for example, once I stood my ground in Ormond Beach here, and they were like, oh, you think we have to follow the Constitution? Oh, well, that's not, Anyway, then it's been a nightmare ever since. So, and from what I can tell, it seems like we might have 3 new magistrate orders coming in the mail today. Yay. Anyway, so even though the case is currently in appeal in the 5th District Court of Appeals, we still have magistrate orders being written and whatnot in the same case. Anyway, so let's see. Big Bad John, nice to have you join us. It's okay that you're late. We actually haven't had any callers yet. You guys, it's 12:30. What's going on? If we're not going to, the first several of these that we did, we were having lots of people call in, and I was constantly going way past the 1 hour. I was trying to stick to, because we had so many people calling in and asking great questions. And I want to say last show, we didn't have anybody call in either. So if we're not going to have people call in and ask questions, then I'm not sure what the point of the show is anymore, quite frankly. It's a lot of work for me. It takes me a lot of time to put the thumbnails together and get all the stuff set up and do all the wording and do a post and let people know and blah, 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 blah. And so, I mean, if I'm not really that useful to you guys in this way, then, why go through the work? Anyway, let's see. Somebody said FOIA is federal. No, that's not the case. There are federal Freedom of Information Act requests, but there are state ones, and the two are not the same. Hello, this is Catherine. Who am I speaking with?
Catherine, my name is Yonko. I do have a question regarding Illinois Second Amendment constitutional red flag laws.
And where'd you say you're calling from?
I've had an experience that makes me very confused how they could possibly be legal.
Okay, well, let's start from square one. What state did you say you're calling from?
Illinois.
Okay, and give me just 1 second. I got to update this so I don't have anybody else call in while you're on. Okay, so Illinois. And I'm sorry, what did you say your name was?
My name is Yonko. I-O-N-K-O, it's spelled.
Okay. Okay, and you had a question about red flag laws.
Yes.
Okay.
So to summarize the law in Illinois, we are required to have a FOIA card before purchasing a gun. And your FOIA card can be revoked by any police officer making a report. There is no hearing, there doesn't need to be an accusation of a crime, there doesn't need to be a conviction, there's nothing, just a report from a police officer. The report could be also from a doctor, but it's also a police officer. And they revoke your card without any hearing, any justification, and you're not even allowed to have access to any of that documentation. There's a subsection in the law that says that no, you can't know who made that report. You can't have a copy of the report. You just left there.
Okay. So your question is, how is any of that constitutional?
Yes. And
so
how is it possibly allowed?
So the answer is it's absolutely not. Red flag laws are absolutely not constitutional in any way, shape, or form. To have your rights taken away without a hearing, without a conviction, that clearly violates several rights that we have, but one of the most obvious would be a right to due process. You have a right to a trial by jury in all criminal matters, and if your rights are being taken away, that's a criminal matter. And you have the right to access any kind of documentation or report that is going to be the basis of your rights being taken away. Anytime any kind of report or documentation can be used to take away your rights, whether it's in the context of the Second Amendment or any of your other rights, you have a right to be able to combat that, to have notice and opportunity to be heard in a court of law. You have the right to, in order to have a real opportunity to be heard, you have, and real notice, you have to know exactly what the allegations are and be able to make an informed, adequate defense on your behalf, and that requires them giving you the documentation. So when you have a state who that allows your rights to be stripped based on a report with no hearing, that by itself is unconstitutional. When you have a state that allows your rights to be stripped without even having a conviction, that itself is unconstitutional. When you have a state that allows your rights to be stripped without even so much as an allegation of a crime, that by itself is unconstitutional. And then when you have a state that says you don't have the right to access the documentation or reports that are made by these cops or doctors, then that by itself is unconstitutional. When you have a state that has laws on the books that work together to do all of those things, that is inherently unconstitutional. Inherently unconstitutional. So to answer your question about whether it's constitutional or not, hell no. What can you do about it? Well, on an individual basis, it's going to be, talking to your legislators. It's going to be, writing the governor's office. It's going to be making noise about it in very careful ways so that you can convince people about what the problem is without just sounding like a crazy person running around screaming like a chicken with your head cut off. You need to sound intelligent and purposeful and try to affect change. And although I would try to avoid going to any of these crazy ass states like California, Illinois, New York, New Jersey, pretty much anything up the eastern seaboard that way, anything like that, the state of Washington, D.C., any of these places that I've either wanted to go back to or wanted to travel to in the first place, now I avoid as much as humanly possible because I know that they violate the Constitution there, and it is a regular occurrence. It is more common than not that they will violate the Constitution in those states. And so although all states have issues, some states are worse than others. In Illinois, definitely at the top of you don't go there if you don't have to. And unfortunately, you're saying you live there. So what do? You fight it the best you can. You can bring a lawsuit that costs money and time, unfortunately. And do you have any guaranteed success? Well, you should, because the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. But we have a bunch of dumbass, ignorant, arrogant judges that sit on the bench and think that they get to just base things off of all kinds of weird precedents from prior cases. They don't bother looking at what the Constitution says and keep it simple. So I wish I had a Staples easy button for you, but at least I could give you the easy answer, which is those laws are inherently unconstitutional.
Yeah, I did hire an attorney briefly, but the expense for the whole process is astronomical. And I just want to give you a quote that Illinois State Police wrote in an email to my attorney, which says, per 430 ILCS 65.8.1-D, any information disclosed under this subsection shall remain privileged and confidential and shall not be redisclosed. The identity of the person reporting under this section shall not be disclosed to the subject of the report.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awful. I don't doubt you that that's what the law says, but I certainly agree that it's entirely unconstitutional, and I'm disgusted at every single one of the legislators who voted for that, and for the governor who signed it, or the 2/3 legislators that voted for it if it was overriding a governor's veto. I mean, that's anyway.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate for the residents here in Illinois, and I wish there was more that we can do, but it's so difficult.
It is. It is. So, you know, I hope that you keep up the fight, because certainly the more we sit silent, the more we don't stand up and fight the good fight, the more they win, and the more they'll take away more and more rights. And then all of a sudden our Constitution won't mean anything, and there won't be anybody left to really defend it. So I'm hoping that it doesn't get to a point of, you know, well, there's a lot of bad outcomes that could come if we don't start doing things the right way. So I hope you don't give up. Yeah, if you have any success anywhere, even on a local level, you might find that, you know, your particular county or city or township or whatever, maybe you could start getting enough support that they consider it. I know in Michigan they've done this, where they have entire counties that have voted to make it a Second Amendment sanctuary city or county, right? So that county is making it clear that they won't enforce a particular state statute because it is unconstitutional, and their job as any kind of government employee, in this case, say a county board of commissioners, their number one job is to enforce the Constitution. So if that means not enforcing statutes that violate the Constitution, so be it. So maybe you could do something in that effect, you know, and if you get enough, you know, start somewhere, start in one municipality, and then try to branch out from there and grow the support.
I do my best to raise awareness. Fortunately, I live in a suburb of Chicago in Cook County, where things are even worse than the rest of the state.
Yeah.
My local police department is very good, but the overall state department and the county level is generally terrible. So I try to raise awareness. I had a conversation with a retired Illinois State Police officer not too long ago, and I was explaining the situation, and he said, "No, this doesn't happen." Like, no, it is happening. The gentleman, he couldn't believe that it's happening. And a lot of people have this sense of denial. No, this isn't happening.
Yeah.
And you can't really, you show them the paperwork, you show them the evidence, and they still can't believe it.
Yeah.
It's infuriating. I appreciate everything you do. I appreciate answering my questions. I love your channel. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. We'll call in with any questions you have in the future as well.
I will. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. All right, guys. So we certainly have time for at least one more caller or two. So make sure to have those questions keep coming. I was trying to go back to, oh, it just scrolled on me. Come on. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so Jane is telling us on YouTube that in the Whitmer kidnapping plot, oh, I guess I'll answer that phone call first. Hello, this is Catherine. Who am I speaking with?
Mitchell.
Oh, you just cut out. Sorry. Who am I speaking with?
Jennifer Mitchell.
Oh, okay. And were you calling from
Hello.
Tennessee then, or somewhere else?
Correct. Nope, Tennessee.
Okay. All right, so let's flesh out. I don't know if you had additional questions or more on the same topic from the chat, but the floor is yours.
Just pretty much the same topic from the chat, but I think it was getting broken up too much. Where my point wasn't really getting through. They only had so many characters in that, whatever, in the field. I believe in Tennessee, you have to show your ID in order to get a FOIA. You have to prove that you're a Tennessee resident in order to get the FOIA. That's what I meant about, doesn't it go against the 14th and the 4th Amendment that you have to give up your identity, relive your driver's license, whatever, because I'd really like to start looking into what my government's doing. I've been watching a lot of First Amendment auditing stuff, and it's got me curious about what's going on locally here in my community. So that's why I don't want it falling back on me if I make too many waves. That's what I was trying to say.
Well, so as far as FOIA requests go, it is pretty typical that you'd have to give your information. Now, for example, when I was in Michigan, I didn't make a ton of FOIA requests, but when I started to make FOIA requests, I don't remember ever having to give my ID. Granted, I lived in a small town and they knew damn well who I was. But, you know, I did have to give my name and my contact information, and I believe my home address. So, you know, it's not an unusual aspect. Maybe different if if perhaps they have some way to have you go in person and somehow get the records that same day, but otherwise they need some way to, follow up and communicate with you. So, I mean, there are some logistical reasons why it makes sense, but as far as, if you're going to make consistent, FOIA requests and you want to keep an eye on things, it might just be the cost of doing business, so to speak. And I realize there's a lot that goes into this, but just try not to be afraid of what those possible backlash outcomes may be, because if you're going to stand up and speak, then you're going to stand up and speak. And I recently had some people that were supposedly big freedom fighters around here that I asked for them to sign on to something in a freedom, capacity. And their response was kind of chilling to me that, well, one of them said, well, I have a business and I don't know that I can, put my name to something like that because of my business. And, and it wasn't even something politically charged. I mean, it was something that it didn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat, or if you like big government or you don't like big government. It was literally confined to a specific part of the statute where it was just like, here you go, and so it was really shocking. It was extremely shocking that this person took such a stance, and it really took me aback, because I'm thinking, how are you a freedom fighter if you're not willing to put your name on the line? And this is somebody that's more outward, not in terms of just trying to be educated on what their local government is doing, like what you're starting to talk about. But this is somebody who's like talking about fighting on the front lines and being there and speaking at conferences or attending conferences and doing all these things. And, if somebody is out there in that realm, in that capacity, they should certainly not be willing or not be afraid to stand up and go, yeah, I'm Catherine Henry. I think what you're doing is illegal and unconstitutional. Here's the reasons why. What of it? Bring it. I mean, that's what we need to do. And, if there's other aspects that, I'm just not aware of that, you haven't brought up or something like that, one thing you might want to do is maybe you can have 2 or 3 people partner with people, and maybe, they're the person that does the FOIA requests and gives you the documents, and then you're the one filtering through and sorting it and reading it and making action plans or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, there might be a way around it if you have somebody who's willing to be the one to put their name on the request. And maybe if they're the ones that they never do anything about it, they just walk in, they go, yeah, just here for some records, that's a possibility too. So don't overlook some of those possibilities of ways to get around things. But as far as, you know, without knowing exactly what the specifics are. Now, if state law literally says you can't obtain government records if you're not a Tennessee resident, that's a problem, because Tennessee, if I'm driving, in fact, 2 days from now, I will probably be driving through Tennessee at some point. And if Tennessee, if something happens to me or my kids or my car when I'm in Tennessee, and there's some sort of government agency involved, some sort of government records, I have a right to, you know, request whatever. If it's footage from a street camera, or it's, you know, documentation from a police report or whatever it is, I would have the right to get a copy of that information. It's directly impacting me. So that would be a violation of my right to equal protection of the law if I'm not even allowed to have copies of documents or other, you know, records. So yeah. And
I think that's the other part of it too. I did speak with somebody else that said that they were having a hard time because they're not a resident getting a public records request because they're not a Tennessee resident. You have to prove that you are a resident.
Well, I don't know if this will make you feel better, but if you know anything about, you probably don't know anything about my battle with the city of Boynton Beach right now, but it's been, I don't know, we're going on 2 years of this battle where they think they're gods and don't have to follow the law, the Constitution, or even their own ordinances. And they're trying to go after me for infinite amounts of money for putting pavers and a privacy fence on my property. Anyway, I have made it through the first round of appeals. Now I'm in the second round of appeals up at the 5th District Court of Appeals, trying to get some actual justice and somebody to pay attention to any aspects of the law or the Constitution. And meantime, the city is continuing to do their stuff. They have now just gotten more orders for fees and fines and things like that about the same finding of violation of the city code. So in other words, they're trying to get me for many times more dollar amount in fines than if I was convicted of murder in the state of Florida, just to be clear. Yeah. So anyway, in part of that process, I requested a copy of the audio recording from them, and I requested a copy of the minutes, and I requested an electronic copy of all the documents that were deemed admitted by the magistrate in our hearing that was held 2 weeks ago. And they ignored me for 2 weeks, have not even responded. And then in that magistrate hearing, I brought up that I had requested my own hearing according to the court rules to get my court costs reimbursed, because I did win part of my first appeal at the circuit court. And the court rules say I have to go back to the magistrate to get my court costs, an order for court costs to be reimbursed by the city. And the city is acting as the court and the prosecutor at the same time. And they actually said on the record that they will not ever give me a hearing on that motion. So the magistrate said he wouldn't do anything because we weren't noticed. We weren't, given notice that that was what the hearing was about, even though my motion predated their request for the hearing to get more fines out of me. He said that because it wasn't set for a hearing, he wouldn't address it. But then he kept telling me to get a hearing. But the city said, oh, well, we're never going to give her a hearing on that because that's just not how you do things. Yeah, dumbass, that's exactly how you do things. That's how the court rule reads. I have to go back to the lower tribunal, the magistrate, and have him issue the order. So I'm not even given the opportunity to get an order denying my request, which I could then appeal. The whole thing is a nightmare. So I'm getting a whole lot of nothing. They don't respond to me in any way. When I file pleadings by email, because they don't have a filing system, I request for them to acknowledge that I have filed them. Nothing. They don't acknowledge me. When I send requests, FOIA requests, and my husband just did a couple days ago, he actually did an actual FOIA request through their system for FOIAs. Still nothing. No acknowledgement in any way, shape, or form. So the system is broken. It's all bullshit. I have a lot of swear words that are about to start coming out of my mouth, but the point is we got to keep fighting because we can't let them get away with this. Now, when it comes to having to give your ID to get records, just the act of giving an ID, you know, I'm not inherently opposed to. I see what some of your concerns are, and you know, I think there's ways around it that we just talked about, but I think as far as, you know, the main concern of them knowing who you are and that you're the one requesting and you're going to continue to request records and things like that. I think that's something that, this is just me saying this, but I think you got to be willing to say, yeah, what of it? This is me. I'm Catherine Henry. I'm going to request these documents. I'm going to request more documents. I'm going to keep requesting documents to keep an eye on what's going on in my community because something doesn't feel right. And that is my job. If I'm not doing my job as a member of We the People, then I'm not doing my civic duty. And if you're going to get in the way of me doing my civic duty, that's on you. So I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents on it.
You're absolutely right. I just gotta put the ball to the wall and put myself out there and just do it.
And it might get ugly. It's always gotten ugly for me.
Yeah.
but I'm still here. I'm still fighting. And sometimes you do win. So if this will give you a little hope, the first time I started really fighting government officials was in the city of Belding, Michigan, a town of 5,000 people, very small. And I got pulled in. My daughter, who's 10 and a half now, she was just an infant. And I got pulled in from somebody who knew me through the Chamber of Commerce, and I was one of like 3 attorneys in town. So he's like, something's a little off about our new city manager. And so he started giving me these FOIA requests, the packets that were received about different things in her past, and then things that were happening currently in our city. And so it's painting this whole big picture, and my eyes are like, whoa, what is happening? So she had been in prior communities where there was this history of really shady, bad stuff going on. And some of them had like NDAs when she left and all kinds of crazy stuff, which you wouldn't think would be appropriate in the context of she's a government employee. But anyway, so then she was in our community and she's violating people's rights left and right and doesn't hide it. I mean, all the documents for those things that I needed were literally in the city council meeting packets. So I would just read the city council meeting packets and go, holy crap, you guys can't do this. So I started going to city council meetings and speaking up. And there was a handful of us. There were maybe 10, 11 of us that would go to every single city council meeting and speak on specific things, not just you suck, you got to go, but it was like, hey, when you took XYZ and you brought her here and there was no arrest warrant, there was no blah, 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 that violated MCL, blah, 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 right? And you can correct this by making sure you do XYZ, or when you, whatever the situation, she was violating a new law every week. So I would go and talk about what law was violated, how it was violated, and what the city council could do to correct it. Of course, they never did. But in the meantime, she decided that she was going to start coming after each of us individually for speaking out at city council meetings and made it personal. And I was told through the grapevine that I was going to be the first one. I was at the top of her list, and she did. She started right with me as the attorney in town, one of the 2 attorneys in town that was fighting against her. Actually, there were 3 of us, but anyway, she started with me. And it was over something so seemingly minute, but I was like, oh, hell no. And then she started trying to get me thrown off the Planning Commission and the Downtown Development Authority and whatever boards I was on. And I was like, I've had enough. So I filed a lawsuit against her, 8 different counts, including some FOIA records requests, violations, and things like that. But I saw it all the way through. And in the end, I didn't get anything, but not even enough to cover my filing fees and you know, gas to go to the courthouse for all the hearings we had. But in the end, she was no longer working at the city of Belding. And it got enough people concerned and thinking and paying attention that we were able to get a recall through on at least one of the city council members. We got a new person elected, and we were able to make some change and start actually doing good things in our community and start correcting the things that were going wrong. And so, yeah, I personally suffered. I personally got nothing out of it, but it was the right thing to do. And God calls us each to do what we need to do, be where we need to be, and fight the fight that we need to fight. And so that was my first round of it. And then you fast forward 5 years, actually fast forward 2 years, and I was taking on, as an attorney, I was hired to take on the city manager of the city of Lowell, who was doing some really shady stuff. And so I suffered out of that as well. I was threatened with physical harm, all kinds of stuff. And but in the end, good was done, and they were able to get out the bad that needed to get out. And fast forward another 4 years after that, and I'm participating in the lawsuit against the governor of the state of Michigan, fighting the unconstitutional executive orders where she's shutting down the state, requiring everybody to wear masks. And you know what? Yeah. I was the only attorney who fought in the Michigan Supreme Court against those governor's orders, who argued from day one that everything she was doing was unconstitutional. The only one. There were 3 of us fighting against her, but I was the only one that said they were unconstitutional from day one. I was the only attorney also who wasn't getting paid a dime for any of my efforts. But it didn't matter to me. I went, and I had death threats from it. Anybody who was working with me with the Restore Freedom petition and all the other stuff I was doing in 2020 and 2021, I was getting tons of threats, including death threats on a regular basis. Hence the reason why I value my militia friends so much, because even though we have firearms of our own and we were CPL holders in Michigan at the time and everything else, still, it can be scary. I mean, death threats. I have kids, but it didn't stop me. It didn't stop me. And I said it back then, and I would say it today. I'd look right in the camera and I would say, Governor Whitmer or AG Dana Nessel, if you guys really think what you're doing is legal and constitutional, let's have a debate on the Capitol steps about this. Let's do this. Let's let the people hear what the issues are. I'm not afraid of you. And what did they do? They coordinated my illegal and unconstitutional arrest in 2020. So that was fun. And that took me almost 2 years to get that case dismissed. I mean, it doesn't matter what you can talk about going through. I guarantee you I have a similar scenario all coming out of me fighting for freedom. But I'm still telling people you got to do it, because if we don't keep fighting, if we don't stand up with the courage and the conviction to take back our country and to defend the Constitution, no one will.
Yep.
And I'm still here.
Wow.
They try to take me down, and look, I still have a smile on my face. I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure Governor Whitmer still cringes when she hears the words, Attorney Catherine Henry. So that helps me sleep at night.
All right, well, I guess I'm going to get this fight started and get business taken care of and just get it done.
Yeah, and
whatever the repercussions are.
We'd love to hear back from you about the things you uncover and ways you're able to affect change and what you're doing. And, any future constitutional questions you have, please reach out. Let us know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Catherine. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great day.
You too. God bless.
All right, guys. So, I didn't do my due diligence of writing down my note. Oh, we have a caller coming in now. Hello, this is Catherine. Who am I speaking with?
Hi, Catherine. It's John from Boston.
Oh, one of those states where they don't like freedom.
Yeah, one of those states, right. I actually had a question. Are there agencies that somebody who is going as a pro se litigant can go to that can get assistance in helping them with their filings?
So that's a jurisdiction by jurisdiction scenario. So when you have, for example, when I lived in Minnesota, we had the Minnesota statewide public defender system. That was for criminal cases, for child abuse and neglect cases, and that was pretty much it. Juvenile delinquency cases. But then we had, at least in our area, it was called SMERLS, Southwest Minnesota Regional Legal Services, I think is what the acronym stood for. And that was for people that were going through other situations, such as like a custody or divorce dispute kind of case where they needed legal assistance and they could not afford their own attorney. And so I don't know, that was many years ago. And I was serving as a public defender and a private attorney. So I don't remember all the kinds of cases that they handled, but Minnesota was actually great. It does wrong in a lot of things, but it always did great at being at the forefront of being able to provide resources and whatnot for people to have adequate representation or even assistance for self-representation. Some states only really have things like in Michigan. If you are in Michigan and you have, a Michigan case, you can go Google SCAO. It takes you to their state court administrative office. They have all kinds of online resources. They have all the court forms. They have tutorials. They have all kinds of different things. Here in Florida, there's certain cases where when you go to file a case online, one of the first questions it asks is if you have your documents already prepared or if you need to walk through the tutorial and have them prepare documents for you. I've never had them do that for me, but so I don't know all the different kinds of cases. I'm thinking at this point it might just be mostly family law is what the Florida system walks you through. And I don't know how it works, if there's an attorney on the other side, or if it's just kind of like a hot docs program where it asks you certain questions, all computerized, and then it just fills in blanks. But there's often different legal aid services in different jurisdictions. Like I said, it might be regional, it might be by state. If it's a federal kind of a claim, there are different agencies that work that way. Sometimes it's a government agency, but then other times, like the State Bar of Minnesota is not a government entity. State Bar of Michigan is. State Bar of Michigan, Minnesota is not. Both of them have I forget what they're called, but basically a way for attorneys to sign up to do pro bono cases to help on a statewide scale for legal assistance programs of all different kinds. And you can tell, usually when you sign up for that, you're telling the bar, hey, these are the kinds of cases I'm willing to help with on a pro bono matter. Big law firms often will have a pro bono section of their law firm designed for certain kinds of pro bono work. And then you have other agencies like the Institute for Justice. What's the other one I just recently came across? The Pacific. Dang it. Tyler v. Hennepin County. So this U.S. Supreme Court case from last year. It was decided June of 2023. Or 2022. Shoot, no, I can't remember. Anyway, it was last year. Tyler v. Hennepin County. The lead attorney on that, Christina Martin, I believe is her name. Her organization, it's Pacific something. The law firm itself or the agency itself is out of California, but they actually do a lot to assist people in all kinds of different areas of law, freedom fighting aspects. So it really depends on, the question you had might be seemingly simple, but it's, there isn't one unified system all across the U.S., but those are all the resources that I know about right off the top of my head. Oh, and law libraries. Definitely start with your local law library because they might have books that will walk you through things, or, computerized programs, maybe one that's housed on their system that you have to use when you're there physically in their office. Or they might have lists of attorneys that are willing to sit down and walk people through cases that are doing things pro se or improper, as it might be called in your jurisdiction. So anyway, now I think that is all that I can come up with off the top of my head, but does that at least kind of give you a start in the right direction?
Yeah, and that kind of leads me to my next question, which is about the record requests. I've noticed that a lot more municipalities are trying to force people to fill out a particular form that they have written out for them. You know what I mean? So if you go into like a town hall, that town hall is requesting you use their particular form in order to make a request. And they're asking for the personal identifiers of the person requesting it, even though the state laws say you can do it anonymously, they're still requiring you to fill that out, and they're trying not to fulfill your request based off of that. So that kind of brings me to this question is, so where do you go when they decide that they're making you use their form, and when you don't fill it out the way they want you to, they don't fulfill your request?
So that's going to be jurisdiction specific. So for example, I don't know anything about Massachusetts law, but I'm going to assume for the sake of answering your question that Massachusetts has a statewide law about FOIA requests, or Freedom of Information Act requests. And as part of that, hopefully it gives specifics on what is required, what municipalities are required to do on their end, what they're not allowed to do, what the ramifications are if they violate the Freedom of Information Act statute. So, for example, if the state law doesn't say that you have to disclose your whatever it is, your phone number or your first and last name or whatever identifying information that you're talking about. If state law doesn't say that you have to, but state law doesn't say that they are prohibited from asking for it, then the city would actually be allowed to still ask you for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get that portion of it. But if you deny their ask and they deny your request because of that,
so
wouldn't that create
it depends. That's why I'm saying it depends on the way the law is worded. So if you have a state law that actually says a municipality cannot deny a request because someone doesn't want to give their home address or something, if the state law spells something like that out, then generally the state law would also spell out what your procedures, what your remedies are. Then you can file a case in district court or circuit court or something like that. You have so many days to do that, or what the procedures are for filing a grievance or a complaint. But as far as what the city or municipality is allowed to do, it really boils down to what the statute says. Because if a statute says, if it says nothing about what you are required to disclose as the person requesting records, if the statute is silent on that, and the city has a form that asks things that go above and beyond and say, well, we want your street address, we want your full legal name, we want your phone number or email or whatever, so we can contact, whatever the those pieces are. If they are requiring that and the state statute is silent on that point, then I would say the way the state law is set up, then the municipality has the right to utilize that form, generally speaking. Now, obviously, there could be something about it where it's violating equal protection or it's violating due process or something of that nature. But generally speaking, if they're requiring you to fill out their form, it might also be so that there could be benefits to that, right? Because sometimes you have people that are dumber than a box of rocks working in government agencies who are not good about filling out, fulfilling requests like that. Maybe they don't understand things, or maybe they file things in the wrong way, or they're not good at record keeping, or whatever the situation is. Having a form that's uniform is oftentimes a way that they can make sure they're doing it equally, that they're providing the same service equally to all people. So there is some common sense to it, but that's not to say that, for example, when I made a request, if you heard I think it was in the last call, I was explaining where the city is refusing to give me the documents that I'm entitled to as a party to an actual case, but where the city is acting as the court and the prosecutor at the same time. And so if it was just a normal court system, then I should be able to just go to the court or go online, get the documents, no problem. But they're not acting like a normal court system. They're not following the procedures or the rules whatsoever. Last year, after our magistrate hearing, I made the exact same request by email, and I cited the court rules, and I said, this court rule requires you guys to do XYZ, and so I'm requesting these records to be sent to me. And the Neighborhood Improvement Division manager at the time, Chris Mason, he took my request and he copied and pasted it out of my email and put it into their FOIA request system. And then he let me know that he converted it into an official FOIA request so that it could be followed up on in that way and whatever. And then that's where they upload stuff, and then I can download it, etc. So at any rate, because it's starting through a case and not just a general FOIA request, it doesn't seem appropriate for me to go through FOIA channels to get stuff related to this case. And I'm talking about, the audio recording of the hearing and the evidence that was deemed admissible by the magistrate, and the official minutes from that. The whole thing is just ridiculous. So anyway, I guess what I'm saying is they didn't require me last year they didn't say, oh, we're rejecting that until you go and you fill out the right thing, but they had all my information. And so they copied and pasted all my information, and then they put it into their system, and then they were able to process it. So there can be reasons why they have a more uniform form or system for processing these kinds of requests, if that makes sense. Again, there could be something specific on there that is just inherently wrong, illegal, or unconstitutional, but without me being there and knowing all the specifics, I can't obviously go into all the different possibilities.
I understand. I just wanted to kind of get a generality of the situation. That's all.
Yeah. Well,
and in your case, it sounds to me like the city acting as the court and being the complainant, it sounds to me like there's a conflict of interest there, but that's just my opinion.
Oh yeah, no, that's an actual thing. I would definitely agree with you on that. But
well, I thank you for your time, Catherine. I really do. I appreciate all your knowledge. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for calling in, and let us know if you have any further questions in the future.
All right. Bye now.
Yes, bye. All right, guys. So I'm going to throw this text on the screen. RestoreFreedomKH.com/donate. I've been a broken record about it, but yet we have virtually no donations that come in, like virtually none. Every now and then I might get somebody that donates $20, and then I'll go several weeks, and then I might get somebody that donates $20. And all of this stuff, the software, the streaming software, the newsletter software, the books and the materials and the whatever, everything I'm doing to try to stay informed and then turn around and educate everyone and help you, it costs me money. And last year it cost me, I want to say it was $3,000 or $3,500 out of our own pockets, where all the work that I do on a full-time basis is costing my husband money, because at his work, he actually gets paid for his work. And we can't continue to go down this road. So if you enjoy what I do, if you value what I'm doing at all, even if you only have $5 to donate, if you could donate $5 a month, am I not worth a Starbucks coffee? That's probably not even $5. That's probably like $10 a month, right? I would ask you to consider donating to the cause. You can go to our website right there, restorefreedomkh.com/donate, all kinds of different ways. Interesting side note, speaking of donations, I probably mentioned a long time ago that we were having issues with Square, which is where we were selling all of our, our Restore Freedom gear, our pop sockets, our window clings, that kind of thing, car magnets, and we were selling them through Square. And a lot of the donations were coming through Square. And I've had Square since longer than I've had my husband. Okay. And we've been married. This year will be 13 years. So anyway, all through 2020, 2021, 2022, I mean, like, I'm leading the charge in the state of Michigan. I'm fighting against this government crap and the tyranny and unconstitutional stuff. And Square had my back. And then January of this year, without telling me, they stopped processing payments and would give people errors saying that there was an error on their end. It made it look like their credit card or their debit card wasn't working. And finally, I had my dad send me a screenshot. He tried it and he sent me a screenshot. I'm like, what is going on? And they had, around that time, they'd also requested a whole bunch of documentation from me that they'd never requested before. I mean, stuff they've already had, plus stuff that, why do you even need this? And they said it would take about 2 to 3 business days for them to get back to me and to process it. And about a month in, I checked and it was still being processed. I think it was this last week. I finally got an email from them, just out of the blue and very simple, no reason why. We can no longer process your credit card payments here at Square because of issues of violation of policy. No indication about what policy I violated, no reason why, no what is the transaction that violated the policy, what is the alleged conduct that violated the policy, nothing. And it took them 5 months to tell me that. I mean, they didn't even tell me when they initially stopped transacting the business. They just stopped. So if you have Square, I used to recommend Square to everyone, everywhere, for every reason, because it worked wonderful for me for many years, over a decade. Get out while you can. Unfortunately, I now use PayPal as the main one that does all that because, such a low volume of what I have, I can't afford some of these other ones that might otherwise be good. So anyway, if you are in the freedom fighting business, if you are just in business for yourself, be very careful because there's strange stuff happening all over the place. Okay, so I'm just looking here. Oh, okay, I'm not sure what individualist is asking about here. Sounds like a troll. Never mind, you're spending half an hour on a pointless question. This is boring. I'm so sorry that freedom is boring for you. Definitely go somewhere else because it's all about you, what you want at this exact moment. Yes, it's all about entertainment. It's not about actually educating yourself or fighting for freedom or learning something that could be beneficial to you or others, but it's all about entertainment. Anyway, so, all right. Lori, let me know. Oh, you know what? Do I have the chat open? I might not even have the right chat open. We have a behind the scenes chat. Oh, no, nobody has said anything in there in weeks. Lori, shoot something in there if there's a question that I haven't answered, because I do want to do that. And Roger that keeps saying FOIA only applies to federal agencies. That is not correct. Not correct at all. There's a lot of state-specific FOIA statutes and anything else. So anyway, okay. So I am not sure where. Okay. So apparently, one of my mods had to take out some trolling comments by somebody, and I didn't ever see what they were. But Keith Hutchins, one of the comments was, so you believe only those who attend law school can learn and understand the law. Now, for people that disparage how hard I worked to obtain a law degree, to put myself through college, to put myself through law school as a single mom, mind you, to study for the bar exams, to take those bar exams, to pass them on the first try, to do everything I've done, to work hard for what I've achieved. Anybody who wants to disparage that and just say, all that is evil, you know, y'all can go to hell. But on the way other side of the spectrum, people that say only attorneys, only those who have gone to law school or who are sworn into a bar somewhere, only us. We are the only people that can read and understand the law, and the rest of you are just mere peasants and, you know, mere mortals, and you just don't understand. Really? No. We're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. We are not a government of attorneys, politicians, and judges. We're a government of the people. And it's damn time that the people know and understand the law, because quite frankly, the government officials, the judges, and most lawyers don't understand the law. They don't know the Constitution. So if you're someone who thinks that someone who's not an attorney can never understand the law, I can tell you that at this point, being married to me, my husband knows more about the law than most attorneys do. My 10-year-old knows more about the law and the Constitution than most attorneys do. Unfortunately, that is just a sad fact, because she listens and she pays attention and she can read the Constitution, and she cares to do so because that's what she's being taught. She's being taught about our constitutional republic and what it takes in our constitutional republic to keep it a great state, a great nation. So at any rate, sorry, it gets me a little ticked when people say things about that. Looks like all the rest of you handled it. Okay. And thank you to the mods who are taking care of that situation. And there's probably quite a few more. I'm just trying to, some of this is back. Thank you, Gary, for saying that I'm a modern day hero. I really appreciate that. And unfortunately, Jane says she's still getting threats from Democrat operatives for being security for me at various events. I laugh because it sucks, but it's probably very much true. Okay. Rats to the moon. I hope Whitmer shakes in her boots when she hears your name. I hope so too. Yeah, if Whitmer runs for president, I really don't think that's a thing, but there'd be enough of us speaking out, I guarantee you. But I mean, we have a dead guy for a president, weekend at Bernie's, so I mean, anything's possible. In fact, I guess it was just uncovered. My husband was telling me the documentation that just was ascertained and verified and everything, that something 17,000 plus dead people, where there was a obituary and everything in Michigan, voted in the 2020 presidential election in the state of Michigan. At least 17,000, not just voted absentee, where the Secretary of State, also a Democrat, sent the absentee ballots out. So she sent absentee ballots out after there was an obituary because someone died in Michigan. She sent them a ballot, and then they voted. I mean, gee, I wonder who they voted for. If they're dead, they're probably voting for the dead guy who's in office right now, because, you know. Anyway. Okay. So looks like it just scrolled. Sorry, guys. If there were questions on here that, oh, no one ever noticed that? Rats to the moon comments. We have a dead guy for president. Holy crap, that's great. Have you not? I mean, you've seen Weekend at Bernie's, right? Somebody is like pulling his strings and he's like, yeah, I mean, it's she's missing all the comments from Keith and jumping on the guy who is actually in the right. A large portion of the conversation is gone, so it's all a misunderstanding from here forward. And it might very well be, Jason. I don't know. All I saw were all the other comments where people were seeming to be asking the same question. What? So you're saying that because we're not attorneys, we can't comment on or understand the law? And if that's what he's saying, if anybody says that, and actually me being pissed off about it wasn't towards one specific guy that is now off the, the chat. My comment is to all the assholes that regularly say that everywhere, whether it's to me or my channel or it's out in the world or to any of you. If you're not an attorney, you can't possibly know and understand the law. Bullshit. So I don't care who you are, where you are. If you say things like that, then that's where my comments are projected. So, okay. And Roger, I'm not sure, you said with all due respect, Catherine, I disagree. I'm not sure what you're talking about there, what you disagree about, but Freedom of Information Acts, if that's what we're still talking about, please look up Freedom of Information Acts in your state, whatever state you're in. I know there's a Freedom of Information Act. It's called different things in different states. I want to say in Florida, it's the Sunshine Act. But anyway, it's, I've actually done videos on that. So go to my website, go in the search bar and type in FOIA, FOIA, type it in the search bar on my website, and you should pull up the videos where I talked about the Florida versions, the Michigan versions, and the federal versions, and where they apply and what the overlap is and how they're different. I went into all the specifics, but the Freedom of Information Acts are not limited just to federal agencies. That's just a cold, hard truth. That's not a matter of opinion. There's nothing to disagree on. You might just be referencing a certain statute that's only for federal agencies, but then you're missing all the other statutes that are Freedom of Information Act statutes, if that's what you're talking about. Again, with chat, it's hard to tell. There's so many other things going back and forth. Anyway, so exactly, yes. I hate when cops say, this is a comment here on YouTube, I hate when cops say, where did you get your law degree? To which I respond to the cop, where did you get yours? I mean, of course, I can respond and say, William Mitchell College of Law, where did you get yours? But if you're not an attorney, then yeah, you'd say, oh, yeah, probably the same place that you got yours. Where did you get yours? Great answer. And I'm not even going to pronounce your name correctly. The Ionko, I think I spelled it differently on here. I think you are our caller from Illinois. So if you're the one that says you're also a web developer, reach out to me at some point. Okay, so yes, looks like we had, I'm not sure what the 7th Amendment question is. Somehow your question was irrelevant unless I attach my bar membership number to my reply. Okay, so, all right, Jason, I think I'm just, I'm not even sure that we agree to disagree, because now it seems like we're on the same side of that discussion. So I'm just going to say there's just a mishap in the communication, and so I'm not intentionally ignoring you. I just don't know how to address the topic anymore. Okay, so you know what's funny about that? So Liberty Warrior says, no, he was saying that basically only lawyers understand the law and all of us are losers. Well, most lawyers are losers. I mean, I don't like most lawyers. There are some other good lawyers out there, but there's a lot of lawyers who are just sucky. They're terrible people. They're terrible at reading and following the Constitution. They're not good at helping people understand their rights. They're not good at client communications. There's all kinds of problems with lawyers. So a lot of lawyers are just terrible, bad, awful, ick. Most of my friends are not lawyers. Most of my friends are people who are outside of the legal profession or in a different aspect of the legal profession. Anyway, so I'm just seeing another comment there, but yeah, I won't even go there. So Roger's saying own record request laws, yes, not FOIA. Okay, Freedom of Information Act. There are literally statutes all across the U.S. that are Freedom of Information Act statutes. That's what they're called. So when you say FOIA does not apply to states or anything like that, that's where there's a huge disconnect. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, can you as a defendant have a copy of your documents on file with your attorney? Mine says I can't have any and he won't let me see them without signing a non-disclosure agreement. That sounds shady. I don't know exactly what the context is there, criminal, civil, anything like that. But generally speaking, you as the client own the substance of your file. Now, work product and that kind of thing belongs to the attorney. But if you have evidence or exhibits or things like that, that belongs to the client, generally speaking, again, without even knowing the jurisdiction or anything else, I can't help there. But okay. Okay, and let me see. Holy cow, there's still chat coming in just as much as when I think Washington State just did away with their bar. Yeah, give me more on that. If you have some sort of documentation, proof, a link, something official, I'd love to see that. You can email at contact@restorefreedomkh.com, contact@restorefreedomkh.com. I'd love to see what that's all about because that sounds too good to be true. Okay. All right. So I think Eric said thank you. And so Lori was saying, I'm not sure that I'm checking the private chat yet. Oh, okay. I just answered that. Okay. And then Jason is saying why he said that. It was to troll. Okay. So I think I'm on the same page with everybody here. But at any rate, I appreciate all of you being with us today and showing your support, whether it's, commenting in the chat, telling people like Rogue Nation apparently sent Jen over to us today. I hope that you check back in 2 weeks for our next show, even if you're just listening or otherwise paying attention. But I love having the comments come in. I love having the questions. I just realized how tiny it is on the screen today, guys. I totally screwed that up because it's kind of blacked out from what I see. There's a big bar over it that says you're currently sharing your screen. But I forgot that if I do this, wow, I could have done that the whole time and you guys could have actually been reading on the screen what I was seeing. Oh, bar exam. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay. There's a lot of stuff about bar exams and bar attorneys and all that. That conversation's a whole other animal. We could certainly talk about that in our next show. So bring up those questions, comments, and concerns, cases, whatnot. At our next show, which will be 2 weeks from today, but 7 p.m., trying to get that evening crowd. And if it's not a very popular time, if people are not tuning in at that time, we'll probably just stick with the noon time because, quite frankly, the evening ones are harder on me. But anyway, you guys don't forget to let me know if there's something like this that needs to be addressed, like the fact that I had the comments so stinking tiny that there's no way you could possibly read that, even if you're using a computer. Let me know in the chat. Let me know, say something. If you're one of the callers, say something to me about it, because I forgot that I had to do one of those tweaks and make it super, super small on my side, so it actually makes it bigger for what you guys can see. All these stupid technology things, I'm just not my cup of tea. Anyway, all right, so okay, one last thing. So Liberty Warriors talking about California doesn't require you to attend law school to sit for the bar exam. On a different note, I don't know if they still do this, but the state of Wisconsin, I found this out as I was a third year graduating from law school, that if I had gone to law school in the state of Wisconsin and wanted to practice law in Wisconsin, as long as you graduate from a Wisconsin ABA accredited law school, you don't have to take the Wisconsin bar exam, which I thought was interesting. But anyway, yes, it's going to take all of us working together to get our country back. It's everybody has to stand up and do their part, whether it's in your own little community, if you have a town of 500 people, whether you live in a township of 50,000 people, whether you're talking about your county, has 1 million people, or your entire state that has multiple millions of people. Whatever the situation is, we all need to work together and fight this freedom fight. Don't expect others to do it for you, and be willing to sign on the dotted line. When it comes to your freedom, when it comes to the freedom of those around you, if it's the right thing, don't be afraid to say, yep, that's me. I stand with that person. I stand for freedom. So let's do this together. All right. And one last comment, and then I'm going to shut it down for the day. Jane says, Catherine, you're literally the only lawyer that I trust and absolutely the only one I call friend and would risk my life for. I'd love to see you again before my health deteriorates too much. Jane, don't make me cry. I'm not going to be able to make it all the way over to the east side of Michigan when I'm there, because my grandma is in a place on the east side of the state. My bad. She's in the Grand Rapids area, on the opposite side of the state from you. So if you're able to meet up with me this weekend or the first part of next week before I have to leave again, I'll only have about 4 days. Please come over. I'd love to see you. And Lori, you never answered me about Tuesday. So if that's still when you're thinking, you got to answer me about that too. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to see all of you and to work with you on this fight for freedom. And I look forward to doing it again. But keep this show going if you think that it will help. If it helps you, if it helps others, keep it going. Make sure you tell more people. We get more viewers, and we certainly get more financial support so I can continue to do this work. So do hit the like button if you haven't already. Hit the share button. Share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever platforms that you have. I will see you guys all next time. Jason B., you're killing me. I have a question regarding an unconstitutional tyrant city mayor. Bring that question up at our next show. I definitely want to touch base on it, but we are almost at 2 hours already. So go ahead and tell us the question next time. I'm sure he'll still be a tyrant. He or she will still be a tyrant then, and we'd give me a call and we can talk about it then. So, all right. Thanks, guys. Have an absolutely wonderful afternoon.
Our work to restore freedom would not be possible without support from people just like you. From the various software and hardware needed to the legal research materials, every dollar you can donate helps. Make sure to like and share this video too. And remember to follow and subscribe and click that notification button. Together we can restore freedom.